realised on the podcast how tall you are.
I am a very tall person.
But you're only a little bit taller than me, but you must be a lot taller in your torso.
I probably am.
Because you're sitting
I do.
higher than I am, and yet when we walk, we tend to...
Yeah,
so
I
we
think
must
we're pretty
have...
much the same.
Yeah.
But it's funny, you never know how tall someone is. I know, because I know Mina. Mina's the same height as me.
Mina
Phillip, knitting expat.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
She's the same height as me.
Is she?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know, you get this mental picture of what somebody must be like or look.
That's it. So, anyway,
right.
Hello everybody.
Hello.
So, this is Petah. And Petah, you have your own podcast.
I do.
Yeah. What's it called?
Dingo Dyeworks podcast.
It's very good. Everyone should go watch it right now.
Sometimes.
It's very good. I've been watching it from the start and it's fabulous. She takes you out and about in Perth
you, Grace.
and all around Western Australia as well. It's great. The last one you did was, no, not the last one. Yes, you did it down in Denmark, was it? Or Albany?
I'm going to Denmark
yes,
though. Where was the last one? Oh, it was in Yellingup, down the Margaret River.
Yes, Margaret River.
That was a nice day.
That was beautiful, yeah. And then you went out to see the beautiful wildflowers.
Yes, that was lovely. Yeah.
That's what
we loved that.
Yes.
That was a nice trip. Yeah.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Me and all my 75-year-old friends up there.
They're the best. They've got all the knowledge.
But I loved it as much as it was really a tour of all the oldies cruising up these wildflower roads. But it was awesome. Yeah. I can recommend it to anybody.
Yes.
It's just nice to head out into the bush, and the Australian landscape is just so peaceful and quiet. You know,
it's pure wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I've been travelling around, I've been doing a lot of the cities and a lot of the roads and stuff like that, but then when I get right out into it, it's just endless lands of wild.
And just nothing. I mean, you must you're in Katanning at the moment.
Yes.
In the middle of the country of WA.
Yeah.
How much nothing is there before you get to Katanning?
Just endless. Do you know what I was surprised about was the huge amount of crop farming that's out there. It's just this huge expanse.
You're in the wheat belt there.
Yes, it's all wheat and it's all been harvested at the moment just before Christmas, which I find really strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't wrap my head around the whole Christmas thing.
Oh, there's a bit of noise up there.
So where are we today, Petah? Because I've actually forgotten.
We are at the Cottesloe Civic Centre. I've brought you to one of my favourite little spots because how windy is it today, Grace?
Oh my gosh.
Have we picked the windiest day of the year?
It's the only day I have because I'm running all over the shop, and I'm really glad that you're able to meet me today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And we said if we had a choice of days, we wouldn't have picked today.
Yeah, no.
Because the wind is just, it is so windy.
Yeah.
But this is at least a little bit sheltered.
Yeah.
And the gardens here are really pretty. So
it's really, really lovely.
We've got a nice spot.
Yeah, we do.
As long as the locals, you know.
I know, I hear a bit of yelling and stuff.
Oi, you in the cheap seats, be quiet.
We've got something happening down here. We've got to get our bouncers to keep the
yeah, that's
see, it's just the press. The press are coming up.
Bouncers.
Oh,
I must get my people to talk to your people.
Yes. We can sort something out. We'll make a meeting.
A security program. I haven't needed it yet, but you never know.
Well, you never know.
No, you never know.
Today could be the day.
Be prepared, yeah.
So, I was just talking to you before we started filming, and you were talking about how you became a dyer. And how did you become a dyer, Petah?
I trained as a vet, and I worked as a vet for many years, and I had my own clinic. And then I gave it away for a while because we had my husband and I had our own business, and so I was out of the veterinary field for at least 10 years, if not more. And then I went back to it, and I just wasn't enjoying myself for many reasons. I'd lost some skills, and I think I was probably at the wrong clinic, really, to be fair. And I just didn't enjoy it. And so we decided to just quit that job. And so I was at home, but I wanted to do something. And I'm not good at sitting still, really. And whenever I've dyed yarn, I've just really enjoyed it. And I get into this space of my own, into the flow of things, and forget about time, you know. And you know you're in a good place when you forget that it's lunchtime.
Yeah.
And so I started dabbling with that and experimenting and bringing the yarn to my knitter friends and they're a really supportive group of knitters, as many of you already know. And they were just running away with all the colours that were coming out of the dye pot and going, make more, make more. And so I did, and this is how Dingo Dyeworks was established.
So your knitting friends were your major support
Yeah,
group.
they are. They're so supportive, and I don't think I would have had the courage to continue on without their encouragement and enthusiasm for the colours and the yarns. I was testing all the yarns on them. You know, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? And they were giving me all their feedback.
Well, feedback is the most important thing as
Yeah,
well,
it is,
especially
yeah.
with knitters. You know, because we're quite honest.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
You know, and we know what we want a lot
Yeah.
of the time. The more you do,
Yeah.
the more you know what you want.
Yeah.
So when I was doing some research on Australian dyers and Australian yarns, I was really interested in the way that you chose your bases. You know, especially your fair dinkum base, which I've been knitting with. It's so lovely.
Thank you.
Have I got it?
I love it too.
Yeah. So, how
yeah.
did you figure out this beautiful? So this is it.
It's
the blue
looking
gum, and it's held
lovely.
double. This is the fair dinkum in the fingering
weight.
base. Yeah. And this is held double. But I've decided as of yesterday to rip this out. And I'm just after getting some more of the same color. So I'm going to do a whole garment because it's too beautiful.
Can I unwrap
Oh
this
yes,
one?
yes. And Petah's also been extremely generous and donated 2 skeins, not 1 but 2 skeins to the podcast.
So this is the DK weight. So it's double the thickness of the fair dinkum fingering weight, and it's not a bulky DK. It's quite a fine DK, but it is thicker than sports weight.
Yeah.
And so it has 225 meters to 100 grams.
And a
whereas
lovely
the-
little stitch marker as well. So cute.
They
Look
are
how
cute,
and
and
it
they
matches.
look like Christmas baubles.
They do, don't they? They're so adorable. So this is the Canal Rocks color. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
It's like a bright blue.
So it's 100% merino and non-superwash.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like. I think in Australia we have a lot of nature, we have a lot of organic kind of foods and wool.
I've
and
noticed that
is,
a lot. You're very concerned about it, and I love it.
and I think Australian people do too. You know, it's our it's a real asset of Australia, I think.
It's something to be
have
really
this-
proud about.
Yeah.
You have extremely good quality products or resources.
Yeah,
that's the
we
word.
do. And so this is, it's not organic as such. So the sheep have been wormed and treated for parasites, but the wool itself has not been chemically treated. It's not superwash.
Yeah, yeah.
So you do have to wash the garment or the shawl by hand.
Yeah.
But having said that, I've actually put mine in the washing
Have
machine
you?
just to sort of see how
Yeah.
far I could push it, and it came out absolutely fine. But I've got a very gentle wool wash on
Yeah.
my machine, so
think
I
if-
wouldn't recommend that.
If I put so much work into a garment,
yeah, absolutely.
I would be very careful.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I just love it. It's the new merino wool, and it comes from small flocks that are highly managed.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
intensively managed, and so the wool is from non-mulesed sheep.
Yes.
So they control the blowfly just by checking those sheep.
Right. So
Really regularly.
So I read a little bit about the mulesing, and I was a bit like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah,
it.
no.
I mean, I understand it as a necessity if you have a large flock and you just
Yeah.
don't have the resources
Yeah.
to keep an eye on the sheep so
Yeah.
carefully. So they just actually, it's because of they're managed quite closely.
That's right. It's
Oh,
a
interesting.
difference in managing.
Yeah. So it's all about small farms rather than big, massive monocultures. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
That makes me really happy.
Yeah, it's true though, Grace, isn't it? It makes you happy to know
Yeah.
what you're actually using. And that's what I find with the fair dinkum base, is that it's the experienced knitters that keep coming back to the fair dinkum. because they've got years of knitting experience, and they not only like pretty colours, but they actually like a wool, a yarn, a fabric that they create to perform in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's what Fair Dinkum provides.
Doesn't that go really nicely? No, I'm giving this away.
Are you sure?
Yes. But I think that's what makes me really love your yarn, is because that maybe it's because of your veterinary background, that you're aware of the animals and the process and where exactly everything comes from source to actual on the needles.
Yeah.
Which I love.
And
Love.
Also, I think, like you, I've travelled quite a lot, and I've seen a lot of other countries, and I come back to Australia and I just love what we have, and I'm really quite proud of what we have. And I think as an Australian person, I just really enjoy bringing Australian goods to the world.
Yeah.
And we do have, it's not like have to kind of sell them in a certain way, they just sell themselves, and I just really like that. Yeah. So.
I was doing a bit of research. I went up to the Barrington Tops with my friend, who is running the what's it called, the Rare Breed Project.
Oh yes.
And she was basically explaining that because Australia is a quarantine country, that the sheep and the animals that we have down here don't have most of the diseases that the rest of the world has. That's because there's such high quarantine. But we can export, down here in Australia, you can export very easily because there's no history of all of these other diseases.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's actually, I find that really interesting, that I'd heard a lot about Australia and New Zealand, merino, and how it's moved all around the world, but I didn't realise that was why, but also I think you've got the land and the space and the right environments to do it as well. So
yeah, we've got a climate, I suppose, but if something like foot rot came into Australia, that would be a catastrophe, really. So they're very strict at customs about what comes into the country. We make the joke that they check for ammunition, but actually don't bring in a cheese sandwich. That's what they're really careful with. But rightfully so, they check that you're not bringing in any leather goods or feathers or
seeds,
dust or soil or seeds, plant material. It has to come in processed packages, and they're very careful with that. For that reason, it protects our industry.
Well, yeah, definitely. So, how do you find being a knitter in Australia then?
Gosh, I mean, I love knitting. I think I would knit if I was, stuck on the sun, really.
Yeah.
I think I would still be knitting.
Me too.
There's not much that stops me from knitting.
No.
I think we haven't, in Europe, for example, I'm sometimes jealous of the European climate. Because when we lived in France for a little while, in the south of France, and the winters there are cold, we would get snow. And there are days where you're just snowed in and nobody expects anybody to move that day. School's closed, nobody goes to work, it's just shut the doors, everybody's staying inside. And those days are really lovely for our spirit, I think, to relax, to kick back, do whatever you like. You can sleep all day, you can knit, you can watch a movie, you can do whatever you like. And we just have such a beautiful climate that
you
we
always
never
want
really
to be
have those
out
down
in it.
days.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity.
There's a lot of
outside.
activity. Yeah.
Even though I mostly just stay inside because the city hates me and there's a burn there. But
it's true, isn't it? You can be up here. You can be out and about at 6 a.m. You can get a coffee at 6 a.m. just about anywhere. And you can be out till 11 p.m. and it's just gorgeous weather most days. And so you really have to force yourself to stay in one spot and knit. So that's kind of what I wished we had a little bit more, is those days where the weather is just too awful to go out. But if you're disciplined enough and make yourself sit down and knit,
you can
which
do
I seem
it.
to be good at.
Well,
you
yes,
can do it.
we can all
we
do
can
it.
do it. So
Well,
I think you know, I just like to knit no matter what. In the evenings, I cannot sit still, so I have to do something with my hands.
You have to be doing something.
Yeah,
That's it.
so I knit.
There's so much inspirational places though in Australia, and that's what I really have found as a knitter traveling around, is that I'm really inspired by the colors, the shapes, the atmosphere, you know, just the amazing geographical Australia.
Yeah.
And when I first arrived, I didn't really know what to expect. A big desert with Ayers Rock in the middle, Sydney Opera House on that side, and then a beach in Perth. That's about it. That's all I knew. And then when I arrived, I was just like amazed by all of the different climates. You know, there's like Daintree, which is just this dense, rainy,
big
green.
rainforest.
And then the second you hit that there's like one mountain
Haranga.
range, and then it just kind of flattens out.
Yes.
And then you're into the grasslands and the
Yes.
sugar canes, and then you go farther down than that and you hit Brisbane, and then it's just and then when you hit farther south than Sydney, it turns into Devon in England. It's just
green rolling hills.
green rolling hills,
Yeah.
beautiful coastline.
Yeah.
And it's just stunning. So
We have a
you're-
really
yeah.
big country, and I suppose that's what happens in big countries. You know, you can go to so many different places and you'll experience different colours and different climates every place you go, really. Yeah, and I'm particularly in love with Perth and Western Australia because we have such low humidity here, so it makes it very easy to knit all year round. And
true.
I really like that. Coming from Queensland, where the humidity is quite high, when I go back now, I just go, but I can't wait to get back to our low humidity climate. You know, it's more Mediterranean.
Yeah, and you get this lovely Fremantle doctor that comes through.
Except right now it's a bit...
It's
you know,
too doctory.
It's on steroids today.
Maybe it's a surgeon instead.
Yes, that's right. It's no longer the doctor.
Oh gosh, surgeons in the
It's
house.
a party. A party of five.
Oh, that's it. That's really interesting actually, because I found that when I was knitting in Sydney, it was getting extremely humid up to the last couple of weeks, and I just couldn't work. I had a colourwork yoke sweater that I had started,
Yes.
and I just could not face 2 balls of wool on my. I was like, no. So I'd just been doing these
You
little
need to
cotton
do
face
socks.
washers.
Oh
you know,
yes,
they're
your face
perfect.
wash, yes.
Perfect, tiny little things.
And
yeah.
I think a lot of us Australian knitters actually resort to smaller garments or smaller accessories over the summer period when it heats up a bit.
We're adaptable that way.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to be down here if you're a knitter.
We're clever knitters.
That's it. I've been discovering lots of Australian designers as well. And it's funny, you see a lot of the ones, say, in Canberra and Melbourne have the lovely cabled cardigans and hats and mittens, and then everyone else is kind of like airy shawls. You can kind of tell from where they're from is what they
I think you're
design.
influenced by the climate, by the colours, by everything around you, you know.
Your yarns are all based on Australian natural features, or just kind of
The
Australian?
colours, you mean?
Yes, yeah. The colours,
yeah. When I came to Western Australia, I was just so, the nature left me with such an enormous impression. Just these bright colours. I mean, how arid is our city, really? You know, you park the car, and you step out of the car, and you have sand in your shoes. You know, this is how arid our climate is, really. And yet we have these big blossoms on our gum trees in bright oranges and reds. I'm still impressed by that on a daily basis, really.
I'm in love with all of the jacaranda trees that popped out.
Yeah,
I have never seen such a colour in my entire life, and they were everywhere.
Yeah. You would have seen them in Sydney too.
Yeah, they were all on the
Brisbane
streets.
has a lot.
Yeah.
Here in Perth we have many. Yeah, it's
And I went
nice.
to Kings Park last night.
Oh, did you?
Oh, Kings Park is so
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is
You did one of your collaborations based on Kings Park, didn't you?
Yes, the flowers there, the
That was
wildflowers.
wonderful.
I love in Kings Park, you know, that's our botanical gardens here in Perth, and they bring all the wildflowers from all the different regions into sections of Kings Park, and I just think that's stunning.
It's like travelling in your own little world.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then you think you've missed them, and you go back, you know, a month or two later, and there's a whole plethora of other
New
plants
bunch.
all blooming then. I
don't know how
just-
they've managed to do it. There's some very good gardeners.
They
in
do
there.
it very well, don't they? And I
Yeah.
think they even have gardening teams of volunteers that come in and
Oh, lovely.
yeah, gardening clubs and
Oh, that's
it's
really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something to get involved in. So I love the way you go into colour in your podcast. Actually,
Oh,
when I
do
saw
you?
yes, I was I think I saw you on the Fruity Knitting podcast.
Yeah.
That was great. I love those guys. I love them
They're
so
great.
much.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Gosh, the detail that they
I
put in their
know.
podcasts is awesome.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just put the camera on and I just talk to it. I'm like, whatever.
I do too.
Whoa. We're just the easy way out, you know. Some people like that. So we have some podcasts. We have
Mine are
some
more like
followers.
a podcast ramble,
Oh
really.
yeah, but it's not like I love that too. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
we all have our own little space to
Our
fit
own
into.
way. That's right.
it.
It's nice.
So yeah, you have your little color wheel,
Yes,
and you
my
go
friend.
through it. I love it, your little friend. But
I
love
didn't
it.
bring my friend today.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. You'll have to go and see her podcast. That's what you'll have to do. But it's fantastic. Did you ever do any kind of study into color, or is it just innate?
Not formal.
Ah.
But I always loved art. In fact, art at school, I always got my top grades in art. And I did after school art classes. And that's where I learnt to paint the colour wheel and the significance of value in colour and that kind of thing. And blending colours and how to coordinate colour, I suppose. This lady, Stella was my teacher's name, and she was an elderly lady and very strict with her students. But I did learn a lot from her. And then, throughout high school, I kept doing art all the way to the end, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then my first preference was veterinary science to go to university, but my second preference actually was design and architecture. And sometimes I think, I would have enjoyed that too, I think, because I do really enjoy being creative. I think as I've gone on in life, I've really had this incredible need to be creative. So
Yeah, I'm very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar. My my first love was art. I always loved art, but I've never been very good at color. I'm a drawer, so I'm line, I'm kind of shape and
shapes,
things like
yeah.
that instead of color. I was always scared of painting because I just couldn't put the colors together. I was just like, I just can't manage it.
Yeah.
So I did go into art college, and I went into printmaking, which was all line and kind of shapes and layering and that sort of thing. And I kind of dabbled with color, but I was never quite sure what I was doing.
yeah.
And then I was a radiographer. Yeah, so I then decided to get a proper job once the recession came in Ireland. So I needed to get a real job. So I did that, and it has enabled me to travel all around the world, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's really been amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
Because
so
you're
lucky.
getting to see the colour and the skies and the light
I
in
know.
every country where you visit, and that's what I love about your podcast. I just love following you around
Thank you.
and seeing, and I suppose I'm experiencing it through you experiencing.
Well, that's
it,
what
which
I'm
is
trying
awesome.
to. I think with my little tiny clips that I take, I'm like, look at this thing.
Yeah, and
But
that's what's fabulous.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And to be honest, I like this podcast because it's my diary.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
as
yeah.
well, because
Yes.
I'll be able to look back on it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, really. So knitting has really got me interested in color, and especially like there's amazing resources like your podcast and like all these different podcasts that are coming together, and I'm becoming better at putting colors together.
That's
and
good.
realizing, oh yes, and I just learned so much from your podcast
Oh,
with
thank you, Rose.
all the hues and you mentioned I think it was, I was just watching the first few again. I think it was on your 4th podcast. You had Dream Time, that colorway Dream Time, and you were using it as a neutral to put in between like opposing colors on the color wheel, because they were far apart, and so they were kind of a little bit uncomfortable until you put something in there. And I love the way you describe colors as comfortable or uncomfortable, you know, like it makes so much sense.
Yes, I see colors, they either kind of jump and they're not really calm together, or sometimes you'll see a color selection and they just seem to fall together like they're meant to be. And that's, I think, when you have something that's really harmonious. And I think that's what you need to look for, is harmony.
Okay, we've managed to calm the fans, I think. We'll see how it goes. Children, you gotta love them. You have to. Anyway,
what were
we
we
were talking about colour.
We're talking about colour. So I met a friend and she was very analytical of her knitting, and she really taught me to be analytical. I think we can sometimes just go ahead, pick a colour that we like and just go for it and not even stop to think. But what she taught me was to actually look before you start, and then look again after you've finished and go, do I like what I've just put together, and how would I do it differently next time? And I think just that process alone, you work out a lot about what is your own personal preference, what's your own personal taste. And you know, that yellow seemed like a good idea to put in there before I started, but really was it the perfect colour? And next time, would I perhaps put in a more saturated colour, or perhaps a less saturated colour, like lower in value? And then you start to sort of put together a more harmonious combination. And I think that's actually where we develop our own style. And you know, colour has to make sense, and we just have to stop and analyze it so it makes sense to us.
Just be a bit more mindful.
Be more mindful.
That's very similar to how I train as a radiographer. We have something called reflective practice, where you study and you're really careful beforehand, you know, because you know it's important. It's important, and it's the same at knitting. You're putting a lot of time into it. You're putting a lot of money into it, and you want to get it right. But then afterwards, you go back and you realize, okay, did that go the best that it could go?
Absolutely.
And can I learn from it? You still have your beautiful product. You still have your lovely X-ray. But how did the process go, or could this be a little bit better? So that's very reflective practice.
I think that's a really good word for it, actually. Reflective practice. I must remember that, because that is what it is. And I think I think what helps with that is to watch podcasts like Andy from Andre Soon Knits. She's very good with colour, and I love watching what she puts together and trying to kind of analyze it and trying to get into Andy's head and she's very good, she's very open about it anyway, but you learn from that. It may not be your thing necessarily, but you learn the theory of how to put them together, and it helps you pick your own colors.
That's really true, because I learned I first got into podcast watching Mina, and her color sense isn't necessarily my color sense at all, but I love the stuff she makes, and I think her freedom and her bravery to choose the colors that she does gives me the inspiration to be like, well, I don't like those, but I love mine, you know. And hers came out so beautifully, and it gives us the confidence to develop our own style.
Absolutely, Grace. I think you just through practice, it makes perfect. You know, you make fewer mistakes as you go on, and you become more confident in the color choices that you put together.
So true. I love that. I love it. That's so great.
I'm still learning, and actually what gave me an enormous amount of confidence, a real confidence boost, was there was a lady in Brisbane who owned a yarn shop, and I loved her color sense. It was my style, it was my taste, but I couldn't put it together. And I would go in one time I decided to have an absolute splurge on a whole lot of yarn colours for a blanket, and I asked her if she would help put them together. And she was very good, and she just got them all off the wall, this amazing wall of colour, and just put them on the table and put them all together. And she was the leader in this process, really, and I let her do her thing because I just didn't have the confidence. This was many years ago now, and I went away with all those balls of wool and I made a beautiful blanket. But it was a crochet blanket, as I was crocheting, I actually thought, I don't like this colour. And I started to develop my own confidence, I think, right there and then, realising that even somebody else, it wasn't a mistake, but in my mind it just wasn't perfect for what I wanted. And that's when I got the confidence that somebody who I admired so greatly for their colour, I even wanted to change some of their choices. And that's when I realised that actually I could do this on my own. I had the confidence, but I just had to bring it out.
It's getting that, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I wouldn't know, and then it's like, actually
you do know.
Yeah, hang on.
It is there in all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that, I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just have to go for it and be willing to make that mistake. And
but the thing about knitting is you can always just rip it out and start again, you know.
And is it
if the
really,
yarn is
yeah. And is it really a mistake, or is it just a stepping stone to the next project?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I love that.
The world of colour. There's a lot of talk about colour, isn't there?
Yeah.
We really have to just jump in,
And
boots and all.
what gets me is people tell me, oh, that colour suits you, but I hate that colour. You know, it's like if it goes again, like my mom, she's always telling me, pink really suits you, Grace, and I'm like, oh no. But because I just feel like I've a really red face, you know, but some pinks do actually suit me, you know. But I think it's becoming like really. I don't necessarily like being put into like a box of you know. I have this hair, my eyes are this color, and my skin is this, and I think it can be useful for someone to go and do your colors for you, do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know what you like. Yeah,
you don't want to be boxed in necessarily.
No.
I think some colors do suit us more than other colors, but gosh, how fun is it to just use a color that doesn't perhaps suit you perfectly?
I know.
Run with it.
I did some dyeing recently. I did some dyeing and I made this beautiful color which I absolutely fell in love with.
Did you love it?
I loved it so much,
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
it's exactly the same color as my skin. It's like a taupey. I don't have it with me. I sent it back to Ireland, but it's this kind of a beige with brown like speckles and reds and oranges and yellow like bright lines. It's beautiful.
Yes.
But putting it next to my skin, it just kind of blends right in. So I need to just put it with something else.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to get back to Ireland and set up my little dye studio. Well, I don't know if I'm
really?
going to. Yeah, I'd love to do like.
There's some
just
great
for
dyes coming out of Ireland.
Really? Dyers. Yes.
Yeah, hedgehog fibres.
Oh, yes.
Goodness me.
And Life in the Long Grass as well.
Oh,
They're
yes.
Irish.
Yeah.
I know. But I don't know if it'll be anything, but I felt the exact same as you, you know, when I was dyeing. I was just like, oh, look at the colours. I just didn't want to stop.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Oh, yes.
And you could always put that with some sort of semi-solid colour that you really like the colour, or it really suits you, or whatever.
I think maybe a chocolate.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice with it, because it would be that beige.
And it would lift it.
Yeah. I must send you a picture, and you can give me your opinion.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Oh, I had so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
So much fun. And I find it fascinating. You know, this world of. Because it's not exactly like you're producing a finished object when you dye yarn. You're producing something on the way.
You're the link.
Yes. It's almost like you're creating potential.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
You know? Oh.
I love that we get a product from a sheep and then we add some colour. You know, everybody's adding a little bit. You know, the gorgeous sheep in the paddocks, the farmers, and
mill,
then
and
then the dyers, and then the knitter, brings it to
and even
fruition.
then wearing it, because it has to be worn, otherwise there's no point.
That's right.
That's
so,
it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, it's
that's
lovely.
awesome that you've played around and you enjoy it so much. Which dyes did you use?
I tested. I had. I think it was landscape dyes.
Lovely.
Yeah. But I don't know if I can get them in the UK and Ireland. But I'd say I'd be able to get something.
Yeah.
I tested out those, and I also have a tiny little selection of Ashford dyes as well.
Beautiful.
Which I've sent back as well. My spinning wheel arrived in Ireland, by the way, everybody.
Oh,
hooray!
How nice is that? Entire?
Yes, yeah. Well, I hope so. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's wrapped up in all of my hand knits that I've knit that it's too hot to wear.
So how much longer are you here for? Oh, great.
So I'm here I'm here in Perth until 5 o'clock today. And then I get a bus to Katanning and I stay there until the 6th. And then I come back down for the weekend and I'm meeting Melinda, the Yarn to Women podcast.
Lovely.
Oh, she's so sweet.
Yes.
So I was able to meet her on the Sunday. I've locked her in. I'm like, lock you in. Because I have to leave again on Sunday at 5 o'clock and I'm flying
You've done so well.
I'm flying to Melbourne and I'm staying overnight in Melbourne. I think I'll just stay in the airport. I don't know. I'll just sleep in the airport because I leave again at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to Hobart. And then I've got a job in Tasmania for 6 weeks. Yeah, until the 24th of February.
Awesome.
And I have my ticket booked to Sydney on the 25th. And after that, there are a couple of options. I desperately want to make it to Canada. But there's also Edinburgh Yarn Festival on the 9th, 10th and 11th of March. So if I could do like a quick hop through Canada.
a quick hop through one of the biggest countries in the world.
Yeah, probably.
You're going to go and see the grocery girls.
I know. I went to
and
see
a couple
Shannon.
Of dyers.
Oh,
Canada has
yes. I need to go
dyers.
and see Sweet Georgia Yarns as well. And Ancient Art Yarns, aren't they from there as well? I think they are.
Sweet Georgia.
Sweet Georgia is
Isn't
definitely
she...
Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've been listening to her podcast. It's great.
I must have a look.
Felicia Lowe, I think. She has a great craftsy class on colour.
Oh,
as
has
well.
she?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
She's
what I'm doing
obsessed
this
with colour.
afternoon.
Do it.
Okay.
Do it.
I will.
She's very, very good.
Okay. Thanks for the tip.
No worries. That's what we're all about. Sharing the love. And I was hoping to get down to New York as well.
All before the
But this is
Edinburgh
probably
Yarn
not going to
Festival.
happen.
You might have to book the Edinburgh Yarn Festival for next year.
I might, yes. But
Get
I want to
yourself
do
a
it
summer
all.
job, a summer job in Canada. Wouldn't that be just awesome?
Oh my
I love
goodness.
Canada.
That would
I
be
love the
so
United States.
Yes.
I love everywhere.
I love everywhere
Ireland.
too.
Where in Ireland do you live? In
I'm
Dublin?
in Limerick, actually. So
Okay.
it's about two hours southwest with the new motorway
Beautiful.
that we just got from the EU. Thank you very much, EU. So that's great.
Awesome.
And yeah, Limerick is a funny place. It's kind of a place you always drive through.
Okay.
It's where you come down to go up to Galway, to go into Clare, to the cliffs of Moher and all of the west coast on that side. And then you also go through it down to get through to Kerry, the Ring of Kerry and things like that. So it's kind of a going through town. But it has a very interesting art scene. So I went to art college there. So
Did you?
Yes, yeah, I went to art
That's
college
incredible.
in Limerick School of Art and Design, which is actually a world-renowned art
Wow.
place thing.
How awesome.
But the city itself is kind of a little bit infamous rather
Okay.
than famous.
Is it?
It's known as Stab City. I love my city, but we're actually quite proud of the fact that it's called
no.
Stab City.
Really?
Well, you know, it makes it a bit exciting.
At what level are you proud of that?
Well, gives a laugh, you know, gives a laugh.
Perhaps it's like we're kind of secretly proud of all the sharks that's
Yes.
off Cottesloe Beach.
They love it. And there's this shark alarm, you know, and I've never heard of it, but my sister-in-law pretty much, she was saying, you know, when she first heard it, she was expecting everyone to be like Baywatch, like, oh no, or Jaws, you know, get out. Everyone was like, oh. It's like, you know, when a fire alarm goes off in the building.
I know. It's
Except there's a real shark, people. Get out of the water.
when we have competitions in the water, you know, and there might be a shark alarm. Everyone has to come out of the water, let the shark pass, and then after half an hour or so, everybody resume your positions in the water where you were before.
As if you could remember, like.
As if you weren't right at the front.
Yes.
And
I was right here.
And
no,
then
you
the
were
race
behind me.
continues. That's how we roll.
That's how you
in
roll.
Cottesloe.
You see, that's it. That's so funny.
We just all wave to the little great white shark that's just gone past.
Apparently there's one been hanging around up a little bit north, I think.
Oh, looking for snacks.
Yeah. Now, well, be grand.
Safety in numbers.
Australia. Australia's great.
We have very cute wildlife.
Very cute. Adorable, slightly deadly.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's okay.
A little bit bloody.
Just, you know, life is not worth living unless you're a little bit terrified all the time, right?
It's like living in Stab City.
Well, yes. Especially working in the hospital there. It's super fun.
Oh.
Lots of pneumothoraces, not really.
I have too good an imagination. This is not good.
No, it's not that bad at all.
Getting visuals.
Oh, it was a lot worse back in the 90s, early 90s.
Was it?
Yeah. It's kind of like, but every big city has its problems. Dublin actually has way more stabbings and gun, violence and everything than Limerick. But Limerick just has this cool name, Stab City.
That's very
So
cool.
yeah, we've in the art world, in the art college that we had, there was a in the year that it kind of all blew up and it was quite big and a bit scary. They just ran with it, and we have this hilarious comedy duo called the Rubber Bandits, and you should totally watch them. Oh my god, it's so funny. I don't know if you'd be able to understand them though, it's the only problem. But if you look up That's Limerick City on YouTube,
Right.
they have plastic bags over their heads and with little mouth holes and little eye holes. You just have to take the piss, really. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really pretty city.
I think
With lots of castles.
because I've been to your country and
yes.
it's gorgeous. I
yes.
love Ireland. And we went there when the children were very young, and we always said we want to come back.
Come back and visit me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And without the children, and do lots of or with the children as older, as grown-ups, because it was at the time where we couldn't go to your pubs.
Yes,
You know,
and if you
because
don't
your
go to the
children
pubs
would-
in Ireland, you haven't really gone to
and
Ireland.
we really wanted to go to the pubs at night time, but we had to be back in the hotel with the children. So
Yeah, the problem is though,
want
you
to
have to
come
be
back.
prepared when you come to a pub in Ireland. You have to have a party piece.
do you?
Did you know that?
No.
Yes, you have to have a party piece, and the knitting's a bit slow,
Oh,
so you have to have like a little song or a little poem or a little dance.
So you can join in.
Yes.
Well, we could do waltzing Matilda or something. Yeah.
Job done.
Bring in a bit of
Happy days.
Australiana.
Happy days.
Yeah,
Sure, most of
be
Australia's
great.
Irish anyway, to be honest. Everyone I meet.
Yes, that's true.
Oh, my
Lot of
grandchild.
Irish-
Blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Let's try that. So, what's on your needle?
So I'm doing socks, and I've got two socks on the go at once, and this is in the colourway Silver Princess, which I just love, and that's in the Dingo Dyeworks yarn Ridgy Ditch. So that's a 15% nylon, 85% merino base, and it's a speckled yarn, and I've started with Claret Tops cuff, and then I've done a fish lips kiss heel in Uluru.
Uluru. I knew that was Uluru. I could
As
tell.
well. And the Silver Princess as the main, and it's just a vanilla sock, but I like doing two at a time.
So, yeah, I've not seen... I
haven't
can't
you?
really... Well, I suppose I do understand the two... Because I do magic loop.
Right,
But
so
the two
it's
double...
similar,
Is it very
really.
similar, yeah?
It's just that the one side of your socks, one half of the socks you do on the one needle,
Okay.
and you come
then
off,
just twist.
and then you turn it round, and then your threads,
Is
your
it easier?
yarn will be,
Oh, I see.
and then you work the other side, the other stitches on the other needle. So the trick is, actually, what helped me a lot is to use two different coloured
That's smart.
needle cables, so that you can easily tell them apart. And so this green one, the red
that
one is
higher, higher?
Chai Gu,
Yeah.
and this is
Higher standard, I think.
Is it?
I think that's well, I have a green one like that.
Okay, it could be Higher, or is it Addy Sock Rockets?
Oh, I don't know.
It's one of the two. I bought a whole lot actually because I had so many socks on the go, and I take them out of the packets and then I forget.
I know, yeah.
But this one
the
is Chow
yeah.
because it's written on the needle.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, it is handy, isn't it? But this one, either it is and I can't see it, which is highly
I think
likely.
the blue Higher are the Higher sharps, and then the greens are the Higher standards. They're not sharps. As sharp as the sharps.
Okay.
Yeah. But it could be another type that have a green as well. So what size needle do you use?
2.25 for a US one, and you just make sure that the green cable only ever knits with the green cable.
Yeah.
If you cross them, that's when you run into trouble.
Disaster.
Yeah. But I like it because you finish your two socks at the same time.
I do the same. I
and
can't do one at a time because.
Wow.
Oh.
And then I saw Melissa and Andy from Andre Sue Knits on a podcast together. So what they did was, what Melissa had done was cast on two socks like
the same
this,
way,
but two different yarns. And for the Afterthought Everything sock pattern by Erica Borton, I think. I should have looked that up. But you actually, essentially you just knit a gigantic tube and you leave a place to do an afterthought heel and an afterthought toes.
Yeah, I saw that she did. She just started off with a rib, knit along, and then just ended it with a rib.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you cut it.
Yes.
And actually pick up the stitches for your toes. But I get impatient, so I had cast these on. And then I got to the heel and I thought, oh, I'll just put a quick fish lips kiss heel in there. And then I got to the toe and I thought about having to pick up the stitches and everything. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to do that. And I cast them off. So
You'll
now
just
I've
have
got
to promise
cast on
to do the
more.
same one.
Yes.
That's it.
So this is a magic ball that I created from all leftover sock yarns.
Lovely.
So there's opal in there and fable and all sorts of bits and
gorgeous.
pieces. And this self-striping yarn is by Laura from Jinx Yarns, who she's one of my.
Oh, wow.
I just love everything that Laura does. And I started dyeing watching her podcast. If you start
really?
dyeing, watch her podcast
Yes.
called.
Is it?
That's terrible.
Oh, Yarn 30? No, that's somebody
The dye-
else. The Dyer's Notebook?
The Dyer's Note.
Yes.
It's very, very good, and she gives you lots of tips and tutorials on dyeing, and she's brilliant. And she went to art college as well, and she knows what she's talking about. So this is one of her self-striping yarns, and
It's beautiful.
and so during the holiday period, I've just really enjoyed making socks, not only with my own yarns, but also with yarns that I've been given and that I've bought over the year. You know, I just never get to them, Grace. So it's just such a treat to be able to use other people's yarns as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's actually quite good with me traveling because I have to be really conscious of what I buy.
Yeah.
And I have to know exactly when I'm going to use them, what I'm going to use them in, and actually knit through them. And I mean, it doesn't mean it works.
It's difficult to have a stash when you're on the road.
I mean, I try my hardest. I do try. It's for the good of the podcast.
That's right.
You know? But that's just part of it.
Yeah.
So and I just have to get faster. That's what I worked out.
But
I think
how
I just
nice
have
is
to
it to pick up yarn everywhere you go?
It's just the best souvenir.
Yeah,
And it's the only
absolutely.
souvenir really because there's only so many magnets you can put on the fridge. There's only so many little statuettes of the Sydney Opera House you can have, you know. But if you can make a pair of socks that you can wear until it wears through and then darn it and keep wearing it forever, you know, you'll remember that time that, because I have a pair of socks that I knit on the river when I went to Burma on the Irrawaddy River.
Wow.
And I knitted for like months, but that's the time that I remember, because I finished them on that river.
Yeah.
And they're way too big for me because I was having too much fun. I was relaxing and I just kept going, and then I was like, oh crap, I better put the toe in. So they're super comfy.
You could have done the afterthought.
I could have. Oh, anyway, terrible. But and they always remind me of that time.
Yeah, that's
and
really special.
there's probably still a lot of dust in them as well, because that dust will never come out.
That's perfect. That's perfect. But how true is it? Whenever I travel anywhere, the first thing I want to head for is the local yarn shop.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to Iceland.
Oh,
That's another
yes.
trip I desperately want to go to. Next year is basically, can I just not work and just go? Can I just keep doing this forever?
Yeah, I think you're on a great roll.
I know. I am getting that urge to just kind of maybe just have my feet just on the ground for maybe 3 years in a row. Like, obviously on holidays don't count, but traveling is different to holidays, I think.
Yeah.
So I am getting a bit of a rooting urge, and
because traveling is an adventure, and I think sometimes adventure comes with difficult days. It's not always easy. A holiday is easy, but adventure is sometimes.
I think when it's prolonged, yes, you have a lot of kind of. I think it's just a long-term, very low level anxiety about, I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 months. I don't know am I going to get to my flight on time? Which flight is the best deal? Am I going to have enough money for that? Am I going to have enough money for this? And it's all just very low level normal stuff. But if I was in one place, I wouldn't have as many of those. What's it going to be like here? I'm going to have to pack here. It's kind of low level constant anxiety, which is just a little bit too much sometimes, and I think I'm good at dealing with it. I mean, obviously I've got this far.
Yeah, absolutely. You're
and
great.
It's not for everybody, but I'm getting to the stage now where I'm like, do you know what, I would like to have just a little bit of breathing space,
more routine kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit more routine, and just somewhere to put all my stash.
Yeah.
Just somewhere to
the things that you can't really have at the moment.
Yeah. But I have seen so many things, and I've seen so many people, and I'm so glad I got to meet you. I'm having a bit of a fangirl moment this entire time, by the way.
2 podcasts.
Look, she's real. She's real.
I just discovered you. When I discovered you, you had like 2 days left in Perth.
Yes, and you sent me an Instagram message,
and
I didn't realize.
And then you were off.
Gone.
I was like, I missed you.
I know, and because I didn't figure out how the Instagram Messenger worked, because I just couldn't, I didn't really know what Instagram, and then I got that about a week later, and I was like, no.
I had my children show me how to use Instagram. Mum, you've done it wrong. Oh, no, not again.
Oh, gosh.
Whereas now I'm more at ease with it all.
Yeah. It's all changed now again.
Yeah,
I updated it, and I'm like, what's with this Instagram story? I'm like, it's not Snapchat. That's what Snapchat's for. Until I'm getting a bit old.
They keep changing. Yeah, that's right. You're becoming cranky.
They're all trying to do the same thing. I'm like, I don't know what's what anymore. Like, Facebook has its own stories as well. I don't know what's happening. Oh my gosh.
Spacebook my face.
I know. Book face.
Book face.
Oh God. I know. Anyway, we'll get there in the end.
But we caught up, which is awesome.
I'm so glad.
It's nice.
I'm so So, do you have any plans for next year?
Yeah, we have big plans for next year. I got the big wall calendar and started writing down.
Yes.
So we've got the big Bendigo Sheep and Wool Show in July, the 14th to 17th of July, and all the Dingo Dyeworks customers will get an invitation to come and meet and knit together. So that'll be really fun. And you're getting sunburned.
I'm just going to put on my very classy.
I love this jumper, by the way.
Oh yes, I'll show you my finished object. So this is my first jumper, which is my modified flax, which is a funny old.
It's gorgeous, and I love what you've done. Going for a neutral colour, and then with this splash of bright. It's gorgeous.
Do you know the reason why I did that? It's because this yarn is a third more expensive than this yarn.
But
it's all about economy, people.
But
it works so well.
Yeah,
You know,
it's gorgeous.
and it just gives it a lot more flexibility with what I can wear it with.
Yeah.
Because this neutral just goes with everything.
Yeah,
Just this
yeah.
grey.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And then this adds it just such a little bit of interest, and I just
Yeah.
love this colours. I hate
Yeah,
the colour.
it
I wanted the
looks
whole
great
jumper
on
in
you.
this, but I just couldn't. But then again, it
Look,
would have
that
lost.
colour looks beautiful on your dress.
Thanks. I agree with this one. But then again, I'm so glad it happened, because it wouldn't be the same jumper if it was all in this colour.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think this accent
It's
has
nice.
just given it
It's
a
really
really
youthful,
lovely.
actually. I think it's really young. It's beautiful.
So this is how we
Yeah.
wear it now, to hide from the sun.
So yeah, the
what
other
we're talking
thing
about-
we've
yes.
got, coming up is mainly a yarn club, which will be Dingo Dyeworks' first ever yarn club. I opened up a thread in Ravelry and asked people to put in all their ideas for Dingo Dyeworks for the coming year, and that was the main thing really, was yarn club and more kits. So we'll have, I tend to show a lot of finished projects on the podcast, and people have been asking to have those available as kits, so that'll be really exciting.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to finish the year with a real bang, but I'll keep that a little secret.
We'll just have to subscribe to her podcast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you
subscribe.
So you are Dingo Dyeworks on Instagram?
Yes, Dingo Dyeworks on Ravelry as a Ravelry group, Dingo Dyeworks on Facebook, and Dingo Dyeworks on YouTube.
Yes. That's
That's
nice.
where you find
Consistent.
me. And Dingo Dyeworks website, dingodyeworks.com.au.
That's a lovely website, actually.
Thank you.
It's very easy to manage. Very easy to manage. And she's excellent postage. Oh my gosh. Because I think I contacted you about the one, and I wasn't sure because I only had like a month left, and you were like, oh, 2 days. 2 days in like urban centres in Australia.
Yeah.
And it was literally like 2 days.
It's because we use Express Post.
Yeah.
It's slightly dearer. It's like the difference of a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
But from Perth to get to the eastern
Anywhere else.
coast, it can take in normal post up to 2 weeks. And I just think, I don't know what you're like. When I'm
Just
creating
want it.
something, I've got that idea in my head and I just want to cast on now.
just
So I
need it.
order the yarn and I get disappointed if it's not there,
Yeah.
right there that minute.
That's
I
it.
want it to do time travel.
Yes.
So the closest Australia Post has to time travel is Express Post. So that's what we use.
And for international customers, what's the...
We use tracking and that reduces the time a little bit. Plus we're all able to see where that parcel is in the world, so we know that it's on track. So it takes, to the United States, it takes about 5 to 6 days.
Gosh, that's nothing.
That's really quick.
From the opposite
I mean,
side of the
yeah.
world, like...
Occasionally, I think I had 2 parcels that I had to sort of chase and give a nudge to, and then they turn up within 2 days or so.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just get stuck in customs.
Yeah,
Customs does a grab
Yeah,
of parcels,
random,
and
yeah.
just a random grab, and they'll just check all those out to make sure there's nothing untoward in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't had really
fantastic.
no lost parcels in
Wow.
2016, which is just brilliant.
So have you just started this year, or have you been how long has
November
Dingo?
2015.
Wow.
So it's kind of like 2016.
So it
my
was
first
when
year.
your first podcast came out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely.
And I really just did the podcast because I find that just picking yarns from a picture is very difficult.
You're so right.
And I think if you can show them on a podcast and put them together and kind of show people what they might look like, it's so much easier for others to get their head around what they like, what they don't like. And I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I get to show off bits of Australia, which is just,
I've
I
loved
really
going
enjoy
back
that.
over your podcast because it's like I remember what it was like when I was here. And she's a really good way of explaining Australia, because Australia is weird. Like, it is weird, okay? But you're so good at you know exactly what we wouldn't realize is.
Oh,
Some
thank
people
you,
just say
Grace.
stuff and they're like, oh, why don't you know this? But you're aware of what is specifically Australian and what isn't.
Yeah, I guess you know what it's like when you travel a lot.
Yeah.
You know what people haven't experienced, perhaps.
It's a different sort of education, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you have it, and you're very good at explaining
Thank
it.
you.
So if you want to learn about Australia at all, just
I just wished I could travel around a lot more. I must come with you.
You must.
You've got all the great Tasmania. I haven't been to
I'm
Tasmania.
so excited. Apparently it's really
Yeah.
like Ireland. So, and it's cold and wet.
Yeah.
But great
and
food.
green.
Green, yeah,
And
really good.
really friendly people from what I've heard.
Really? That's so
Yeah.
nice.
Lavender
I've got-
fields.
Oh, lavender fields. I've heard there's some vineyards as well.
And beautiful beaches.
Oh, lovely. I'm going the right time of year as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it'd be
I'm
lovely.
excited. I hope.
Yeah.
I hope to God I have internet down there. That's all I'm saying.
I can't promise you that.
I know. I'm staying in accommodation for the apartments for the first 2 weeks. So
You'll be fine.
I should have something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your phone, can you?
I've got about 10 gig on my phone,
Right.
which I go through very quickly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No.
It means
it's
I'll be
easy
hanging
to
out
do.
in a lot of internet cafes.
Yes, that's right. Buying a coffee every half hour.
Yeah.
We're so cheap with our internet in this country.
I
You know,
know.
you buy a coffee, you get a code, it lasts you half an hour. Is it still like that?
I don't know. I haven't really been doing it because luckily I've been able
McDonald's
to
are
get internet.
good.
Yes, McDonald's are always good wherever you go, and Starbucks lasts about an hour and a half in most countries. That's what I was doing when I was in Vietnam, was Starbucks.
When I was traveling around before in a different lifetime, we would drive into the McDonald's car park and you didn't have to buy anything at that
No.
time. I don't know what it's like.
I think it's still free.
Is
yeah.
it? And you just log on and send all your emails, download all your things, answer, and then go again.
When we were traveling in May, Game of Thrones was out.
Oh yes.
Or coming out, and every time Game of Thrones would come on, we would just park up and kind of back up against the wall of the McDonald's, and then lie on the back of the van, as close as possible, and then stream it. So bad, it didn't work very well. But you know what? It was worth a shot.
When you're desperate, you'll do anything.
That's
Yes.
it. I know it's bad, isn't it?
Well, I
We're
think
so-
you'll have better luck than that in Tasmania, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yes. I'll be fine. So I think we've covered pretty much.
I think
we've
have.
got, but thank you so much again.
Thank you, Grace, for having me. Thank you for making time. It's the Christmas period.
Thank you for making time.
Oh, no, it was great. I know you've got family around and everything, so I'm
yeah.
taking up your precious time with them.
They're fine. I'll see them again, sure. I'll see them again.
Well, thank you. We might have to get out of this hot
I
sun.
think so.
What do you think?
So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed today, and pop over when you see us. Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for popping in, and I hope you enjoyed it. And
Bye, everyone.
what do you say? Hooroo.
Hooroo.
Hooroo. Bye.
Just
Just driving into Frio. Look at this amazing illustration. Thank God it's the red light, isn't it, Petah? It's amazing.
stop anyway.
Yeah, we'll stop anyway because, art. For the sake of our art.
I love Fremantle for that reason.
There's a big,
just so arty.
There's a big rainbow of, is that truck containers over
Yes,
there?
it
Oh, how
I
awesome.
think that was part of the statues.
Oh, by the sea, sculptures by the sea.
Sculptures
They
by
do
the
that
sea.
a lot over there. These are all the cranes coming into Fremantle. I'm trying not to end my sentences too. Oh yeah, the fish is just. The Australians have a habit of not finishing sentences. Or words, sorry, not even sentences, just words.
That's so
Put an O on the end of it, or
I notice
an
that
I.
in my podcast sometimes
Do you?
we go up at the end of our sentences.
Yes. I've probably taken to
Like
doing
everything
it.
is a question.
Yeah, you know.
It's terribly annoying.
Is this Fremantle Prison up here?
This
No.
is Fremantle Arts Centre,
the art centre.
which I love. It's got a gorgeous cafe. I used to go to pottery classes there. Some fabulous teachers there, residencies. These very old, original buildings. Fremantle's established.
I went to Fremantle Prison and did a tour
These houses are just so beautiful.